Hey guys, today we're going to do another video on Montessori. I'm going to talk about some of the principles that light my heart up, and I have a feeling they're going to light yours up too, especially if you're parents. In the traditional school system, it's set up with the teacher at the top, a top-down approach. The teacher at the top who decides what we're learning, when we're learning it, and how we're learning it, and he or she feeds that information to your child, top-down. In Montessori, it's more like a triangle where your child is at the top, and these bottom two corners are a prepared environment and a prepared adult, or the guide. So in this setup, the prepared environment and the guide serve to support the child who is at the peak. And the first step in being able to do this is to observe your child. So find out just sit back and kind of see what's interesting them. For example, right now in my home, the backyard's full of bugs. We have bees, we have ants, we've seen moths, they're all over the place. And my 2-year-old is bugging out, if you will. So I have a lot of activities on her shelf bug related. My son, on the other hand, is more into the reptiles right now. So there's the frog life cycle going on our refrigerator. We have books and all different pamphlet pages that he's flipping through and whatever interests him we're reading about. You follow their interest. So when you see what they're interested in, you prepare the environment to hit that need or hit that interest, so they don't have to go out looking for it. Another big one with my little one is she loves to throw and unfortunately hit. We're working on that, but when you see your child doing something like that, especially if it's developmentally appropriate, like age 2, sometimes throwing's a thing. Throwing is exciting. That they're learning to throw. You could provide them safe ways to throw things. So we have these stuffed animals, and we practice throwing them behind the couch. She, instead of throwing things at her brother or at me or grabbing random things off the shelf and throwing them, we show her to pick up the stuffed animal and just throw it behind the couch like a basket. Or in the back, we have a little basketball hoop that she throws things through. Yesterday in the pool, she was throwing all the things in for her brother. So if you see your child in one of these developmentally appropriate phases, but doing something that you don't agree with, like throwing books off the shelf, prepare the environment so that she has somewhere that it's safe to throw things, as opposed to reprimanding her for a behavior that's absolutely normal for their age. Another important thing about preparing the environment is you want to foster independence. So you want them, the saying goes, help me to do it myself. You want to give them as much opportunity to practice independence as you can. I did this a lot with my son when he was younger. Unfortunately, we did take a hiatus from Montessori after the death of my dad and another pregnancy, but we're getting back into it. But we still have all this stuff. We have a learning tower in our kitchen. He had all child-sized kitchen tools. He used to help me prepare meals. He even used to prepare his own meals. When you're doing that, like I'm going to be setting up my daughter's kitchen section soon, and I'm really excited to show you guys. I am going to have to get her some smaller things because our current setup is a lot different than it was when I had my son. But when you're setting up like their kitchen area, you want to give them access to be able to get their own snacks, be able to get their own simple meals. Like she could make her own piece of toast if she wanted, or pour a bowl of cereal, get her own juice. You want to leave them just enough that you're willing to clean up. So instead of leaving her a whole box of cereal and a whole gallon of milk, I'll give a small container with a little scoop that maybe is enough for 2 bowls of cereal and a little thing of milk in her tiny little fridge, so that she can get herself her own bowl, and I could restock it later. But she's learning, okay, I'm hungry, I could do this myself. Because one of the pillars of Montessori's philosophy is that they want to be independent, and that is something that we teach them from a very, very young age. The prepared environment doesn't just apply to the kitchen or their toys. Their toys are fun. Like Luna has a shelf that she can access all her stuff, and each activity is in a tray with all its components in that tray, so she could focus on one thing at a time. And I know in my video yesterday about manifesting generators that that's hard, but that's why you have choices. So when they walk into the room, they have an array of choices to choose from that are developmentally appropriate, that are beautiful and appealing to look at, that they could access and put back by themselves. And it also allows them, you want to give them as much time to concentrate as they can. So if you see them take this one toy off a shelf and they continue do it over and over and over again, you don't want to interrupt that. You want to let them concentrate on what they're doing as long as you can. But say they're concentrating on something and you realize, we have an appointment we have to leave here in 10 minutes. But they're really concentrating on that. Instead of waiting and saying, okay, cleaned up, we gotta go, you give them a nice warning. You gently come in and say, oh, I see you concentrating really hard right now, but we have to go to the library in about 10 minutes. So I'm gonna let you know in 5 that it's gonna be time to clean up soon. And then you let them get back into it. You never want to interrupt a concentrating child unless you absolutely have to, because it's that concentration that they are building. And once they build that concentration, so many doors will open up for them. One of the first 2 subjects that Montessori uses is her sensorial apparatuses and her practical life skills, which is kind of what I was talking about in the kitchen. At that young age, what they want to learn is practical skills. So in my daughter's room, I have her giant closet full of her clothes, but she has a small stand-up closet that houses 2 outfits, that she could reach herself. This way she can practice getting dressed and undressed without tearing everything out of her closet. And she has choice. She's not told, this is what you're wearing today, put it on. It's, I want that shirt and I want those pants. And it goes from there. I give her 2 shirts, 2 pants, 2 pajamas, and a pair of socks. And she has her little hoodie hanging on the side and a little book bag in case she feels like playing with that. I have to work on my bathroom a little bit. We're getting on that, but they should be able to access their toothbrush and all their self-care needs all by themselves. If you need to bring a mirror down lower, if you need a step stool, if you need a little low shelf, these things are easily found at like flea markets. You don't have to buy something expensive, but you want them to be able to access the things that they need when they need it. She has child-size kitchenware. She has child-size serving things. Even in the garden, you could get child-size garden tools, child-size cleaning tools. When they see you doing things, they want to help. And if you give them the opportunity to watch you and have their own tools and follow you, they will pick up on it. I have videos of my son cleaning this house top to bottom once he learned how to do it, because it was something he enjoyed, he saw me do, and he wanted to do. Montessori also had taught lessons on grace and courtesy, or her peace curriculum as well, where she taught you to love your environment, to love yourself, to love others. Respect. Respect is a word that is the basis of what Montessori is about. You respect, mutual respect for each other, mutual respect for the environment, mutual respect for all living things. And her grace and courtesy lessons taught them that. It taught them how to blow their nose. It teaches them how to shake a hand, how to have a conversation, how to share. And she turned these into games in a sense, and the children light up when doing it. She also considered, when the child was choosing things from the shelf, when they were working hard, their play is their work. There is nothing that the child is going to do play-wise that is not considered work. And she said, through her observations, that most children have a 3-hour work cycle that they work within. And with my study of human design, that is beautiful. For us projectors who can physically push energy out for 3 solid hours before being like, whew, I'm whooped. So, this is how that worked. It's not always going to look the same. So in that 3-hour period, a child can come in, they can make their breakfast, they can clean up after themselves, they can put their dishes in the dishwasher, they can go into the room, maybe grab a book off the shelf, read a book, put the book back, play with a couple toys, get up and dance a little bit, play with the music instruments, decide that they want to wander outside, go play with some bugs, dig in the dirt, fix the garden, let them follow it. They may even get tired at some point and sit down and do nothing. but then they'll get back up for a second surge of energy in that 3-hour period. So just because your child slows down about an hour or so in, that was called false fatigue. She witnessed it in almost all the children. They'll stop, they'll get a little crazy, they'll come bother you a little bit. I use bother lightly, but you know what I mean. I'm bored, or what are you doing? That kind of thing. And then trust that something will grab their attention. And that last 2 hours is where they're going to push for it. They may really get absorbed into just one thing, and they may just get absorbed into one thing for like weeks at a time. But trust that eventually that sensitive period, which is something else she discovered in children, will end, and they'll want to do something else. She saw that children had sensitive periods to certain parts of learning. And once those sensitive periods closed, the child could still attain those skills, but it was harder and it took more effort, because during these sensitive periods, it's like they obtained it unconsciously. Think of a butterfly, or a caterpillar rather. It knows what it needs to eat. It'll eat and eat and eat, and then all of a sudden it knows it's time to wrap myself up in this cocoon. Nobody told it was time. Nobody was like, okay, you need to eat this, this, and this, then we're going to do this. No, it just knows. It's a sensitive period for eating. It's a sensitive period to finding your spot. A sensitive period to being in the cocoon. It just has these periods of when it's supposed to do certain things. And us as humans, our children, have those, specifically in those first 6 years of life, when they are in the stage of the absorbent mind. In the first 6 years of life, your child will absorb everything in their environment unconsciously, and it becomes what makes their personality. Not saying that if you or your child had a rough first 6 years, because believe me, I was not the best parent. Nobody's the perfect parent, but there's going to be struggles. There's going to be things that you're not proud of. We all make mistakes, but the important thing to remember is nothing absorbed during those first 6 years are stuck in stone. You want to provide them the best experiences you can in those first 6 years, but if you can't, or if you didn't, it's not the end of the world. They can still learn those skills. They could still overcome struggles. My son wasn't talking until almost 4, which is completely deviated from what Montessori had, saying that if provided the proper environment, they'll talk by 2.5. My son didn't talk till almost 4, and to this day still has a really hard time reading. But guess what? He had his diagnoses with his speech delay. He has a tongue tie. I wasn't in my healthiest stages for a time period there either, where a lot of my efforts were put into my healing, and he was there along with me. So give yourself grace, because that is the most important thing. You need to love yourself as a parent in order to love your children the way they need to be loved. So if you don't love yourself, you're going to have a hard time implementing anything. So the first step of preparing the environment and being there for your child is making sure that you're okay, making sure you're drinking your water, making sure you're eating your food, making sure that you're dealing with your own inner life to the best of your ability. Nobody's perfect. Even as I'm making these videos, I'm like, oh crap, I forgot about a lot of this stuff that I used to do back when he was younger, before I had to deal with my own inner world. Montessori called it being a prepared adult. And as much as I studied and knew the concepts and did the shelves and put out the materials, I was not okay. And I'm not going to pretend that I was. And that had a huge damper on how this played out in our lives. So the past couple years have been very much about me taking care of my inner world so I can now show up for my babies the way they need. And that is okay. Take as long as you need. Your babies will be more appreciative of it if you take care of yourself first. So this went a little differently than I expected, and that's okay. I'm going to leave this video as it is. I'm going to go into more detail about some of these and do a lot more in-depth video on these principles, and maybe even her philosophy a little more. But I felt like I needed to get this out so that people understood why I loved this so much. Because it truly is about supporting the child. It's not about feeding them, regurgitating stuff to them, having them memorize and bring it back to you. It's about seeing what lights them up and preparing an environment that supports that. I love you guys.